and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
I'm generally not very good at video games. It's mainly because I'm too complacent with losing and I don't have much of a competitive drive. Even with games I love with all my heart, I'm still fairly dog shit at them. My true strengths lie in strategy and RPG games. Ever since I was a kid, I've always preferred games that relied heavily on tactics and foresight. It feels very rewarding to conquer a game's mechanics and functions using your knowledge, so I was naturally drawn to something like the Persona franchise. Persona is a turn-based JRPG with life simulator. Who am I kidding? I don't really need to go on this whole spiel about what Persona is. You clicked on this video. You know what Persona is, and if you don't, you're just gonna have to stick around and find out for yourself. Now, I could go over my general thoughts on this series as a whole, but it's probably best for me to focus on one game in particular, my favorite one, Persona 4 Golden. It may not be the best graphically or combat-wise, but I've always considered it the best in the series. I thought it would be fun to discuss the game here on the channel. I decided to replay the game in its entirety recently, and I've got quite a lot to say about it. Let's start from the very beginning. Persona 4 Golden distinguishes itself from the previous games as soon as you boot it up. Usually, Persona openings are a lot more brooding and riddled with angst. Even the original version of this game had an intro that presented itself in a much more serious tone. But here, everyone's having a gay old time. Just look at this nigga having the time of his life inside a trash can. How could you not crack a smile at this shit? I can never skip this opening because it always puts me in such a good mood. The energetic and chipper atmosphere always lifts your spirits in preparation for the game. Everything's all bright, colorful, and vibrant, encapsulating the future fun adventures you're gonna get yourself into. It's a perfect way to start off every playthrough. After the opening, you meet one of the very few reoccurring characters in the series, Igor. He's arguably the most important companion you'll ever have throughout your journey, acting as a guide and a mentor who drives the development of the protagonist and ensures his powers flourish in battle. It's a unique dynamic he only shares with the MC, and he rarely ever engages with the rest of the cast. He's a character that's shrouded in mystique, often only assisting from the shadows and never giving much personal insight about himself. Whenever he does verbally interact with you, it's to give vague and cryptic warnings to nudge you forward on the correct path. I've always seen him as an overseer who makes sure each component falls in the right place without getting too involved, like some sort of chess grandmaster that indirectly steers the main ensemble as his chess pieces in order for humanity's survival. Despite having so much impact on the story, he's often overlooked or underexplored, which is a shame because his existence poses a lot of interesting questions about his lore. What mechanisms is he using to combine personas together? Why does he only offer aid from a distance and not interfere with the plot himself? Why is he always with a bad bitch? But getting answers to these questions would ruin the mystery the character brings. The dude does look a bit nuts though. He looks like he could hear a shekel drop from a mile away. Like if you printed pictures of his design in Germany, you'd get arrested for a hate crime. Our story begins as any proper narrative should. Titties! I mean, with our protagonist. This is you. No, not you. Yu Narukami, a young city boy who's been thrust into the life of the countryside. His parents are working overseas, so he's recently moved to the small town of Inaba all alone, which is actually kind of insane. Let me just dump my kid in the middle of nowhere for a year. I'm sure this abrupt change in environment won't have any repercussions on his cognitive development. Luckily, the guy is completely unfazed by this huge shift. For any other regular kid, this lifestyle change would introduce new anxieties, like figuring out how to fit in with the people and their culture. But Yu is just too cool for that shit. The kid's one charismatic bastard. Just listen to how distraught his old classmates were hearing about his departure.
Well, I'm sure that you all know already, but at the end of this month, he will be transferring to another school.
They're so sad, bro. They're genuinely
Quiet down,
distraught.
guy.
Our boy is quite the social butterfly. It's clear he'll adapt to his new life just fine. Yu is taken in by his uncle Dojima. Until his parents return, Yu will be living with him and his adorable little daughter Nanako. The two welcome Yu into their home as one of their own. Despite being a newcomer, they still regard him as close family. Once he's settled into their home, we get some important insight on the small family's daily life. Dojima is often forced to neglect Nanako due to his duty as a police officer. His professional responsibilities as a detective prevent him from his responsibilities as a father. And you can't help but feel sympathetic towards Nanako. Her life showcases the standard hardships and lifestyle of the single-parent household. She and many children across the world deal with distant relationships with their parents due to circumstances outside of their control. She doesn't get to grow up with a normal childhood like most. She had to mature earlier than the vast majority of kids. She often has to take care of herself by preparing dinner and walking to school on her own. And she's still well-mannered and obedient enough even when Dojima isn't around. Even with all this pressure on her, she still chooses to be a good sport. You gotta give her props for putting up with this shit at such a young age. It takes a lot of resilience and mental fortitude to keep up with your dad leaving for milk every day. She's becoming more and more estranged from her father, and it must be putting a strain on her. You could possibly be just what they needed to bridge the growing gap between her and her father. In the news report, there's this huge political scandal about an affair. Taro Namatame, a council secretary, was caught sticking his dick in some reporter behind his wife's back. Allegedly, of course.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
But hey, what else is new? It would probably be harder to find a politician that doesn't cheat on his wife. I'm more surprised he wasn't cheating with multiple women. Or children.
Every day's great at your Junas.
I've noticed you weren't singing there, bud. You got a fucking problem or something, buddy? Replay that part back and get to singing, nigga. The next morning, it's Yu's first day enrolling at his new school, Yasogami High. On his way there, some kid cracks his nuts falling off his bike. This is Yosuke, the best Persona bro. Just from his first appearance, you can already tell he's a dude down on his luck. If you feel bad for him now, don't worry. His life is about to get a whole lot worse. Well, perhaps I should find some kindness in my heart and be generous enough to at least help the poor kid out. Maybe I could even use this as an opportunity to make a new friend. Nah, I gotta go to class. It's the first day at school and there's already a sizable problem. The teacher is an absolute nutcase.
First things first. Just because it's spring doesn't mean you can swoon over each other like love-struck baboons. Long as I'm around, you students are gonna be pure as the driven snow. You'd better not even think of getting involved with the girls here, let alone abusing them.
You better not get any pussy in this game. This is a pussy-free zone. Zero pussy grabbing is allowed on school premises. Unfortunately for the teacher, no amount of warnings will stop this guy. The pussy just comes right towards him. Two girls from class offer to walk back home with him. The girls introduce themselves as Chie and Yukiko. They seem to take an interest in him since he's the new kid from the city. Since they'll be seeing him around every day at school, they might as well get to know him. Yosuke arrives and begs for mercy after breaking Chie's Bruce Lee DVD. And Chie gets so pissed off that she crushes Yosuke's balls, which is a fantasy for some of you. I should probably go check up on Yosuke though. He's already had a pretty bad morning, and I could cheer him up if I lent a hand. Nah. Yu chats with the girls on his way back home. The girls are really friendly and don't treat him any differently because he's an outsider, creating an inviting atmosphere for him on his first day. It's really sweet of them to make them feel welcome and find a place to fit in. Chie especially. She jokes around and teases Yu like he's already a longtime friend. And Yukiko is a bit bashful, but she's very polite and courteous from her time working in her family's inn. They both come across as really likable and lively people. They're the best first impression the player could have on meeting the types of people living here. Unfortunately, not everyone in Inaba is as pleasant as these two. All their fun is ruined when they walk in on a crime scene. There's been this violent murder. Remember the reporter that got banged by that politician? Allegedly? Well, she's dead now. Given that that secretary's political career is currently in jeopardy, I can't think of a worse moment for this tragedy to occur. But there's a legitimate possibility that he's not even involved and the real culprit is somewhere on the loose. It creates this creeping feeling that there's a disturbing presence that will soon disrupt the livelihoods of the people living here. But it's a crisis out of Yu's control, so all you can do is just hope things improve. Leave things up to the police and go about his life. Alright, fine, I'll help him out. Just like the girls you met yesterday, Yosuke is an open-minded guy that makes a favorable first impression. You can tell he's a chill dude, the kind of guy you'd crack a beer with. In exchange for your assistance, he invites you out to eat with him and even pays for everything. Chie demands to come along too as repayment for the DVD. The trio head to this town's version of Costco, Junes. While the three are chatting it up, Yosuke notices one of his co-workers, Saki, sitting in the food court. It's obvious by the way Yosuke ditches the others to go talk to her that he has the hots for her. And by the tone of the conversation, the feeling isn't exactly mutual. It's one of those situations where the guy is clearly fawning over the girl, but she isn't reciprocating any of that energy back. She shuts down any attempt he makes to get closer with her.
Hey, if you need to talk, I'm always willing to listen.
I'm okay. Thanks, though.
This is like a canon event for most teenage guys. To point out her disinterest in Yosuke even further, she goes over to chat with Yu instead. Sorry Yosuke, but you met the unfortunate fate of competing with a Persona protagonist. And to make it even worse, she humiliates Yosuke by saying he doesn't have any friends, calls him annoying, and even leaves before he finishes talking to her. Shit must have been rough for him on the inside. Chie could sense how hard he got cut, so she suggests checking out the Midnight Channel. There's this rumor spreading around that if you look into a TV on a rainy night, your soulmate will appear on screen. Might as well check it out for shits and giggles. Yu waits until midnight to verify the rumors, but instead of seeing a Pink Pantress level baddie in front of him to marry, the TV just slurps him up like Kirby. He's lucky he never upgraded to a flat screen because his entire body would have been sucked through. Owning a CRT saved the series from ending right there. He tells the others about what happened, and predictably they think he's been smoking some good kush. But Yu's story about the TV puts him in the mood for some electronics shopping at Costco. The other two initially make fun of Yu for the TV thing, but then they witness him actually going inside. There's this bizarre and contrived sequence to force them inside the TV. Yosuke has this random sudden urge to piss. All the shots to the nads must have caused some damage. Then he and Chie both start spazzing out uncontrollably, causing all three of them to fall in. Jesus Christ, did you hear those cracks? No wonder why they all have scoliosis. The team is stuck in some alternative world laced with fog. They search around aimlessly for an exit to no avail, up until they encounter an insidious threat to mankind. There's this bipedal sentient bear costume named Teddy. He's the obligatory mascot character made for that sweet plushy revenue. By his dopey smile and piñata-like design, it's evident that he's just some harmless goober. He makes some bear puns that are so unfunny that they become funny. It's good anti-humor. In terms of Persona pet characters, I'd say I like him more than Morgana, but he's no Gotomaru, although all of them pale in comparison to the true GOAT of the mascots. I can't get fully into Teddy's character right now, and I'll go more in depth as we go on. Underneath the felt and fluff, Teddy actually has some form of power over this world, considering he can make an exit at will, and he kicks everyone out, sending them right back to Costco. After the insanity that happened today, Yu comes back home exhausted. Doshima informs him that Saki has gone missing. This immediately sets off alarm bells in the player's mind because earlier it was revealed that Saki was the first one to discover the female reporter's body. This could be a sign that the killer is eliminating any witnesses. We're probably just overthinking things. Saki's probably just hanging out somewhere. The last murder was someone we only heard through the news, but there's this whole different feeling of dread when it's someone you knew in person. Someone you saw and spoke with had their life meet a brutal end. Someone you saw laughing, smiling, and joking will never be able to do so again. The small town setting of Inaba really adds to the stakes of the mystery. A repeat offender in some country bumpkin location is some real scary stuff. In a large city, you're more likely to get murked by some crackhead tweaker than some meticulous serial killer. But in a place like this, that motherfucker could be right down the street. The bodies are being hung up on top of TV antennas too. This is the work of a real demented bastard. The whole situation reveals that inside this jovial, colorful small town of smiles lies a depraved evil that's blending amongst us. They're masquerading as an innocent civilian and making a mockery of the victims involved. Yosuke starts to speculate that this isn't just random violence, but something tied directly to the Midnight Channel. Both the reporter and Saki were seen on the Midnight Channel at some point. He suspects that people who appear on the TV are some sort of premonition, an indicator of who's selected to be slaughtered next. Teddy also mentioned that there was someone throwing people into the TV world. Based on the clues he's gathered, he plans to jump back inside that TV world to investigate, and he relies on Yu for assistance. The people Yu has met have been nothing but generous and considerate towards him. They had given him tours of the town and had become people he could consider friends. So without question, he would want to repay these people for the kindness they've shown him. I also admire Yosuke's drive to pursue the truth behind this mystery. Every other kid in town treats the murders as if it has nothing to do with them, but after everything he's found out, there's no way he continued to live in blissful ignorance. If he sat around with the information he's learned and did nothing, he'd basically be letting the killer get away with everything. He's got a lot of love for this town and its people, so he's not gonna let some psychopath ruin it. The police are incompetent and haven't made any actual progress on the case, so he feels like it's left to him. That agency demonstrates an iron sense of justice. He's willing to put himself in danger for the sake of those important to him. His actions are reckless, impulsive, and arguably even stupid, but are nonetheless pretty badass. If you really think about it, the entire story pretty much starts because of Yosuke. He was the one that put the pieces together and made the decision to investigate the TV world. If it weren't for him, it'd be likely that the serial murders would have continued uncontested. That's why he's the fucking GOAT of Persona Bros. The guys return to the TV world and run into Teddy again. The three of them come to the conclusion that the culprit is trapping people in his world as a method of murder. Throwing people into TVs is a damn near foolproof crime. You could easily dispose of evidence, and it's impossible to logically prove that such a world even exists. From this, you understand that the killer is pretty cunning and inconspicuous, setting him up as an effective adversary in this mystery. The boys explore the world for clues but run into the first batch of enemies in the game, and with people to protect, it's time for you to awaken his persona. With his newfound powers, we're able to use a JoJo stand to fight off these shadows. The first battle teaches you the most basics of combat. Personas, weaknesses, elemental and physical skills, you know, the core mechanics. After the battle, the team hears several voices that reflect Saki's feelings and the burden she had to face before her death. One of these voices being Saki's. It isn't her ghost or anything. The voice is meant to express the aspects of herself that she was keeping hidden, and her words uncovered how badly she wanted Yosuke to fuck off. It's the most heartbreaking thing he could learn at a time like this. Imagine if the girl you were fawning over secretly hated you and only tolerated you out of pity. Her interactions with you were just charity work for a Make-A-Wish kid. You went to the lengths of heading to an alternate dimension with hostile monsters, all to learn that your presence was nothing but a nuisance to her. That shit would have crushed my spirit into salt. It's one of Yosuke's lowest points in his entire life, and as a consequence for bringing himself into this world, a distorted version of himself is cultivated. The Shadow is a bad faith narrator. It takes the complexities of a human being and boils them down to their worst, most selfish impulse. It's this manifestation of intrusive thoughts. All his immoral and egotistical desires are packaged within this twisted caricature of himself. The deepest and darkest parts of his psyche are forced into the limelight. The Shadow Yosuke forces himself to confront his hidden emotions, and he instinctively denies them. This visceral reaction activates something in Shadow Yosuke, and he transforms into the first in-game boss. The first boss is basically a tutorial on blocking, a pretty overlooked mechanic in the series. I always saw blocking as underrated when it came to combat. It's a pretty handy defensive option, especially against bosses. It shields party members from getting their weakness targeted and reduces the massive damage they would have received to a minimum. When all your weaknesses are covered, it prevents bosses from comboing your anus to death. This makes bosses attack less frequently, meaning you won't have to waste as many turns on healing and items. This allows you to prioritize going on the offensive. It maintains the momentum and flow onto your side, making fights a whole lot easier. All you have to do for this boss is block whenever Shadow Yosuke blocks and you'll be fine. It's really just a test to see whether or not you're a dumbass that's not paying attention. The shadows may be exaggerated, disingenuous representation of a character, but they still hold some fundamental truth. No matter how much you whine, cope, or deny, these subconscious feelings are still a part of you. Getting all defensive is just a mechanism used to avoid harming your own self-esteem. You feel as though this bizarro mirror of you is a personal attack on your character, but it's highlighting the issues you try to forget. Everyone has undesirable facets of themselves that they're ashamed of or afraid to confront. But you're not just defined by these insecurities. It's how you act after introspection that truly matters. Whether you choose to improve yourself or succumb to your doubts reflects your true character. The first step to truly bettering yourself is having an honest assessment of your person. A denial of your imperfections would be running away from the cold, harsh reality that is the truth. Transformation only occurs after you confront yourself head on. Once Yosuke is able to understand this, he's able to access his persona. And with that newfound strength, the guys are finally motivated to save everyone else thrown into this world. After returning home, Yu checks the Midnight Channel to discover the silhouette of a future victim. Since there's no possible way the police would believe any of the shit they experience, The boys decide to go at it alone. They dab each other up as a brotherly contract to rely on each other as partners from now on, laying the groundwork for a blossoming bromance. At school, Chie freaks out because she hasn't seen Yukiko all day. She also noticed that Yukiko's kimono matches the silhouette on the channel. Everyone's really panicked about this revelation. Like Chie is gonna bomb an orphanage if she doesn't find Yukiko within the next hour. But it turns out Yukiko is just working at her family's inn, so the trio ends up letting their guard down. Everyone expects to chop it up with Yukiko the next day. But what do you know, Yukiko ends up on the channel that very same night. Things are a lot more tense now since this is someone both Yosuke and Chie had personal relationship with. You and Yosuke head to Costco first thing in the morning. Holy shit, Yosuke. That jacket is absolutely magnificent. I would wear that every single day if I had that. Accompanying his swaggy ass coat, he brings off weapons to fight the shadows. And for some reason, he starts swinging the swords around like some autist. And because Yosuke thinks he's the next Zoro, the police give him a taste of the law. Yu's uncle gives him a lecture at the police station but lets him off easy. They bump into Adachi, Dojima's slave lackey. He's the most hardworking and chivalrous gentleman you'll ever meet. As the gentleman he is, he kindly informs the boys that Yukiko has been reported as missing, confirming that we have to find her for real this time, though the game interrupts our investigation so we can meet Marie. If you only played the original version of this game, you probably have no idea who the fuck I'm talking about. The golden edition of this game incorporates an entirely new character. She's angsty and brass, but she has a soft spot for you and his friends. Her hot topic fashion sense and attitude remind me of Nana a bit. She writes many poems and it's the sort of shit you would see posted by some tryhard on Instagram, but it adds this artsy and reflective side to her. She holds curiosity for humans and the functions of their world, just like all the other Velvet Room attendants. Throughout her social link, Yu teaches her about the world outside the Velvet Room. Quite a few people don't know that her social link is somewhat important. If you don't max it out within a certain time frame, you miss out on an entire dungeon and subplot. Sometimes she can feel weird because she's not directly implemented into the story until late game, despite being so significant. I understand why they didn't utilize her more. They basically have to reprogram the entire game, but her inclusion feels disconnected from the mainline story and characters. Though overall, I think she's pretty cute. Her not knowing about basic human life and mispronouncing words is pretty amusing, and I'll dive deeper into her lore and relevance when the time comes. The gang jumps back inside the TV and Teddy helps them find Yukiko's location. They end up at the entrance of a castle. She is obviously panicking about potentially losing her best friend, so she runs off by herself. Yosuke and Yu chase after her, but Teddy stays behind because he's a bit of a pussy. Inside the castle, you actually get to finally play the game for once. A thing I love about this game's combat system is how it rewards you for your performance after every battle. If you hit enough enemy weaknesses or end the fight on an all-out attack, you'll get shuffle time. Shuffle time lets you select cards that give out various rewards that will aid you through dungeon crawling. These rewards are very crucial considering it's where you get new personas, stat busts for min-maxing, SP recovery, and numerous other things that could make or break a run. It gives the player a good incentive to use the most optimal skills as much as possible. There's also this risk-reward factor to it, where you can sacrifice XP or cash to collect multiple bonuses. So you have to gamble and evaluate which cards have more worth. And if you play your cards right, you'll be able to collect every card in shuffle time and get a sweep. Then regardless of how you perform, you'll receive a guaranteed shuffle on the next fight, as well as an extra 2 card draws. If you keep this rhythm going, you can have multiple sweep streaks in a row. I always find it better to get as many sweep streaks as possible to get a constant stream of rewards to choose from. And as you get further into the game, the rewards become even more beneficial. It's a phenomenal mechanic that, if used correctly, can ensure grinding goes along smoothly. Eventually the guys catch up with Chie, but she's confronted by her shadow doppelganger. Chie's shadow sheds a light on envy. It's an extremely human thing to compare ourselves to others. As much as you want to believe that comparison is the theft of joy, you still desire to have other people's qualities or luxuries. It's inevitable for insecurity to form when the people around you possess the things that you don't. You begin to question your worth or ability as soon as their peers grow higher in status. Chie would see the attention Yukiko would get at school, and it made her feel like she wasn't enough. She felt inadequate and ashamed about her tomboyish interests. But when Yukiko turned to her for protection, she realized that she was capable of doing something Yukiko couldn't do on her own. Deep down inside, it made her feel like she was at least better than her at something. She refused to admit that these feelings existed, especially since her jealousy was directed at her own best friend. But the denial only makes the shadow spiral out of control, transforming into the next boss fight. So now you have to fight this erotic clan member. When I first played this game, I was but a humble beginner that didn't really know what he was doing. So back then, Shadow Chie whipped my ass back into slavery. If you mindlessly spam skills with no game plan, you'll get crucified. The boss emphasizes the necessity of keeping track of affinities. Shadow Chie is weak to Yosuke's wind skill, but in turn, Yosuke is weak to her electric attacks. The fight is now engaging because you have to appropriately time Yosuke's attacks and blocks. It also reinforces the idea that blocking is essential. She can also put up a green wall to protect her weakness, creating an additional challenge. Just like the previous boss, it is a test on everything you learned so far. After the second boss, the boys empathize with Chie to get her to accept her shadow. Unfortunately, the gang has to halt their progress today since they're tuckered out. They head back to the real world to recuperate. The gang nominates Yu as the head honcho because they obviously acknowledge his superiority as pro-tag. Yu gets to decide whenever they go in and out of Costco. At this point, the game takes off the prologue training wheels and gives you the freedom to explore the castle whenever you want on your own. From now on, you get to experiment with each character's battle archetype and judge their kit's strengths. Yosuke is good for buffing speed to avoid heavy hitters. Chie prioritizes strength skills so she can conserve SP, and Yu is the jack of all trades with his multiple personas. And in the dungeon, you climb up each floor on your journey to reach Yukiko. Most of the floors are pretty much the same, but the 5th floor has this strange gimmick. Going in a certain direction makes you teleport to a different spot. It's not an interesting or challenging puzzle at all. You can walk in the opposite direction and traverse just fine. I don't really know what they were trying to accomplish here. Who's even doing this shit anyways? Is it Yukiko? I bet she was laughing her ass off implementing this goofy bullshit. I'm gonna go deal with her myself. Too bad her shadows already got to her. The shadow exposes the diligent facade Yukiko was putting up for the sake of her family. She pretended to have no qualms with work, but the load just kept piling up. The burden of family tradition placed too much strength on her to handle. She wanted someone to just whisk her away from all her problems, a hero to absolve her of all of her responsibilities and hardships. She wanted to sit on her ass and fool around like any other teenager. She shouldn't have to break her back at some inn. She should be playing Super Mario Galaxy 2 for the Nintendo Wii. She bottled a lot of these feelings in order to honor the prestigious legacy her family built up. The inn is pretty much the only remarkable landmark in Inaba for generations, and if she didn't take up the mantle to run it, it would feel like a disservice to her entire history. She feared being reprimanded, so she had no choice but to neglect her health. She devoted all her time to managing the inn, but never found the time to manage herself, and even now she still won't admit that. You know the drill by now, it's boss time. This one starts having fairly similar affinity challenges as the last one. She also has this fairly powerful flame attack, but I got a persona note to fire in advance. But after depleting enough HP, she summons this little minion. This guy's an absolute little shit cause he can silence your personas. Removing this bastard as soon as possible is a requirement. At a certain point, the minion realizes that he doesn't really want to do this anymore, so he just scatters off like a little bitch, leaving you to smack around the boss silly. With Yukiko saved, she can finally accept herself and get her persona. The team escorts her back to home safely. When she finally recovers, you can see the immediate change in her demeanor. At the beginning of the game, you could tell she's stressed and anxious, but when she realizes she doesn't have to bear the burden alone and that her friends are there for her, she feels relieved. She's learned to take agency over what's right for her, and as a result, she's far more open and comfortable with her life now. She has these long giggle fits at the lamest jokes every so often, and unfortunately, it's sometimes contagious. It's silly, but it's wholesome to see since she's finally having fun. As repayment for everything you've done for her, she chooses to help with the investigation. I've always seen Yukiko as a mandatory member for dungeons. Her being the healer makes it so I don't have to spend much money on healing items. Her magic stat is phenomenal, so she does some exceptional damage to enemies weak to fire. Despite the healer archetype, she's still a powerhouse, making her put out better numbers than that pussy Morgana. Her SP pool is actually insane, and that's even more evident late game. It's safe to say that she's not going fucking anywhere throughout this entire playthrough.
It's over.
There's a news report on biker gangs one night. Dojima recognizes the kid on the report as Kanji Tatsumi. The boy has been soloing biker gangs because they've been keeping up his mom at night. This dude hasn't even been properly introduced yet and he's already based beyond belief. But unfortunately, this Chad pops up on the Midnight Channel. The investigation team set up a stakeout to prevent the kidnapping from happening entirely. Yu and Yukiko go on a date instead of doing their job, while Chie and Yosuke dick around and get caught spying on Kanji. The plan ends up failing miserably and Kanji ends up missing. The team heads inside the TV, but Teddy can't seem to pin down his location. Now we have to search around town and talk to people for clues. I've always thought of these mini sections as filler. I get that it's meant to feel like you're doing an actual investigation, but it feels like a waste of time. It's so boring to be forced into what essentially amounts to fetch quests for hints. You have to wait multiple days just to get the information you need. I would be fine with it if I could still do my main social links, but the investigation team is usually unavailable during these moments. The majority of the evidence you discover could be obtained obtained through a cutscene, so I never fully understood the purpose of these parts. After giving Teddy the clue he needs, he guides everyone to a steamy sauna. There are voices of freaky gay men at the entrance.
Come here, pussycat.
Oh, nah.
Oh, such well-defined pecs. There's no need to be scared.
Kanji's entire dungeon feels like watching the Industry Baby music video. His shadows making all these homoerotic innuendos. It's like hanging out with that one friend that's constantly making homosexual jokes to get a reaction out of you. I was patrolling through the Zestfest dungeon just fine until I got my first death due to bad RNG. One thing that's always bugged me about Persona games is how if the protagonist dies, it's game over. It's probably to keep the game from being too easy, but it never made any logical sense. Everyone else could be revived just fine, but only the MC stays permadead. It also doesn't help how there's numerous ways that the others can revive them. Can one of you assholes toss an item or something? If someone asks Yukiko to revive you, does she tell him to fuck off? Anyways, the team runs into Kanji and his Zestacular replica. His other self unveils the true nature behind the tough guy act. His identity as the neighborhood gangster was just to protect his pride as a man. His aggression and violence were a front to hide the qualities of himself that did not align with his machismo ideals. Constantly, he was told that he was a queer or a sissy for being into feminine things like sewing. Everyone around him kept telling him that it was strange and gross for a guy to have these hobbies. He internalized those perceptions, and it made him question if there was something truly wrong with him. He let the mockery get to his head and it drove him to make irrational decisions. He started overcompensating by being a delinquent as some form of affirmation of his masculinity. He wanted to prove to everyone that he wasn't any less of a man by being the stereotypical macho man. He believed that making people fear him was a better alternative to being condemned for his passions. These acts of provocation were purely performative. The real him feared being vulnerable because it left him open to being judged as some freak. He wasn't able to accept himself without the social approval of others. That desire for validation made him unable to bear the truth. If he's not gonna face himself, then we'll do it for him. This is the first boss to have 3 targets: Shadow, Kanji, and his burly boyfriends. The boss's primary gimmick is to inflict status effects, poison, and rage. Rage is more of a detriment because it forces you to do weak attacks, wasting valuable turns. I hate to say it, but Yosuke is an absolute liability during this fight because of his electric weakness. He'll get his ass tased more often than not, leaving you to get brutally penetrated by the gay gang. Yukiko and Chie are far more powerful and can exploit the weaknesses of the boy toys. You're better off just keeping him on guard so the other 3 can fight at their full potential. After the whole Pride Parade dungeon is over, Kanji is recruited to the investigation team, and he's a great addition. He's become far more open about himself after learning to put down his walls. Aside from all his troublemaking, he's a swell fella who sews cutesy stuffed animals. When you get to know him more, you realize he's more eccentric than his appearance lets on. He's likely one of the funniest characters in the entire franchise. A lot of his humor stems from his over-the-top reactions or general naivete since he's younger. His voice actor, Troy Baker, has fantastic delivery and seriously sells his lines well.
So someone's killing people with the TV? What is he, beating them to death?
The acting is a perfect touch to his goofball personality. He plays off the rest of the team wonderfully and he's comfortable enough to endure their banter. You can tell he has plenty of admiration for his upperclassmen, especially since they changed his life. It feels incredibly satisfying that he's finally found a place where he belongs. From the moment Kanji joins, the gang gets plenty more lively and dynamic. Part of the reason why I love this game the most out of all the Persona games is because the fun interactions amongst the main cast. In between the main story, there are these long segments of downtime where the characters simply just get to hang out. They focus on the peaceful and exciting lives the cast has outside the murders. Rooting for them is then made simple because you want to see them enjoy their lives all the time. These scenes are also important because they illustrate the group's strong chemistry. Now that there's another guy on the team, it's relatable to see a group of dudes getting into wild shenanigans. Like when the guys all get motorcycles to do some pussy hunting. Kanji cracks me up because he's super enthusiastic while also being the most dense. Yosuke is desperate for a crumb of coochie, and then when he finally thinks he's scored, it leads to him getting his bike crushed by gender swap Eric Cartman.
Wait!
Damn! That scene in particular kills me because the boss music starts playing as soon as this behemoth shows up.
Hanako-san, why are you here?
Big Bertha. There's also the camping trip where the girls cook up a murder attempt for the guys, and later they have to hide in the boys' tent from King Cockblocker.
Are there any rotten apples out and about? Any indecent students out there?
There's pussy grabbing going on here. I can sense it. These parts work so well because each character has their charming quirks, and they juxtapose with each other nicely. The characters wouldn't be as nearly as memorable or endearing without them. It's a nice calm before the storm prior into getting into the next Midnight Channel victim. There are rumors buzzing around about a pop idol named Rise coming to town. The rising superstar is taking a break from stealing hearts with her magnetic charms to stay with family. The investigation team suspects that she's the next target because every previous victim has appeared on television. When the boys check the Midnight Channel, they could tell it's her just from the size of her ass. With their suspicions confirmed, they go out to find Rise and warn her about the kidnapping. You quickly find out that she's in low spirits, which contrasts with how perky she's represented in the media. She's already in such a sad state, so it's vital that the gang actually circumvent the abductor this time. They prepare themselves more thoroughly this time and even bring Adachi to help out, but during their stakeout, they end up catching some redditor creeping on her instead. This moderator of the Rise fan sub is off his fucking rocker. He threatens to jump into oncoming traffic so he won't get arrested. Apparently his right to voyeurism is something he'll die over. They all get so caught up on this bum that Rise ends up missing behind their backs, so they must return to Costco World to find her. The last dungeon had super homo vibes, but this one takes a hard step in the opposite direction. The previous one had Lil Nas X energy, but this one just screams Cardi B. But aesthetics aside, I had to make some roster changes. Unfortunately, I had to bench Yosuke for Kanji after that Celtic Shack performance last boss. Kanji specializes in multi-hit single target attacks, so she completely mogs him in terms of damage. Multi-hit attacks are the primary reason strength-based personas in general are goated in combat. Kanji can tank heavy damage and he's far more effective than Yosuke for bosses. We're especially going to need all the help that we can get for what we're about to get into, encountering Rise and her warped reflection. Rise's storyline embodies the themes of the franchise in the most direct and literal way. Her character is a prime example of what the game is ultimately about. Her dual lifestyle as a pop idol represents the mask people put on to obscure their true selves. She had to discard all the unwanted aspects of her real life to produce this media-approved identity. The rosette on TV is just the image that the masses wish to see. This notably ties in with the game's commentary on the media and sensationalism. People became obsessed over her celebrity status and developed a cult-like following surrounding her. Over time, she must have grown to resent her alter ego because it eclipsed her own self. She realized that people were drawn to the Rosette personality but not to any of her actual talents or qualities. Her idol life was a myth manufactured and streamlined by managers and executives. But she still reveled in the recognition she was getting. Having so many people worship and adore you is a thrill even if it's built upon a lie. Rosette had been her identity for so long that she no longer knew where the persona ended or where her true self began, all while she continued to desire everything that her alternative self possessed. She couldn't confess that because it made her feel like an attention-seeking whore. That guilt causes the shadow to go haywire. So now we have to beat on a stripper. You know, this brings back memories of my time in Vegas. This boss can be tricky for some players as blocking isn't as useful. Shadow Rise has access to every basic elemental attack and can hit everyone's weak point at any time. No matter who you bring, she has a counter, so you just have to pray to the RNG gods for mercy. In the midst of the fight, she just starts cheating and renders herself untouchable. But when this happens, just keep guarding to conserve resources. This is because you're scripted to lose either way. As the team drifts closer to their deathbeds, Teddy grows some balls to finally be on the front lines. He charges up all his key energy to kamikaze the shit out of the boss. It calms the shadow down enough so Rise can accept it. She now understands that Rosette was still something that originated from her. It's an identity that's been a core part of her and made her who she is today. It's a scene that everyone here could resonate with, except for one person. Something she says triggers an existential crisis with Teddy, spawning a shadow from inside of him. It speaks on the internal conflict he had regarding his existence. Since his conception, he's been trying to overcome his nihilistic inner demons. He longed for answers that would solve who he was or where he came from. After being isolated for who knows how long, he finally had sentient people to connect with. He initially thought that they would bring him the answers he was searching for. However, as he spent more time with them, he became more aware of their differences. It made him begin to question his very being. Everyone was finding themselves. Except for him. Teddy felt alienated because he knew he was nothing like the investigation team. He wasn't anything other than a husk with no real essence or purpose. He was never intended to be anything other than some hollow creature that wandered around the fog. That was something that no amount of soul searching would change. It's too heartbreaking for him to concede that his efforts were futile from the start. This rejection of that undeniable truth prompts the shadow to become more hostile. Shadow Teddy is the first filter for beginners. He separates the scrubs from the players who are actually ready. Pay close attention attention to when he mind charges. His next attack can dish out some heavy punishment, especially if you have Yukiko on the team. He has this ultra charge move, but don't worry, that shit's just for show. The game babies you pretty hard and just negates the damage entirely if you block. It's crazy how I used to think this guy was hard, since he's a complete wuss if you know his attack pattern. If you overcome Teddy, you prove you understand the game's mechanics enough to face the mid game. Things are looking up as 2 more members discover their personas, and everyone gets back home without incident. But just when you think the killer has been foiled like before, the game subverts your expectations. I'm smoking on that King Moron pack. I'm supposed to feel bad for the guy, but I've always hated that jackass. The real issue is that Lord Overbite wasn't shown on the Midnight Channel or any TV program. He was just a random victim who shouldn't have died according to the killer's MO. Throws a wrench in the team's plan, causing them to feel completely lost. They can only rely on Teddy for any more info, but they stumble across an unexpected discovery.
This really hits the spot.
Our little stuffed buddy can now cross into the realm of the real world, signifying that he's finally done feeling barricaded from the rest of the team. Before, he was just a remote assistant. Now he feels inspired to become one with everyone else. But that's not all. Teddy had an insane DBZ training arc off screen and turned fucking Aryan. His emptiness has been filled with a newborn soul, complete with a twink body. But appearance aside, the transformation is fascinating because it raises some intriguing questions related to the franchise's lore. Do personas create a synthetic spirit within their user? Is any non-human capable of morphing into a person if they want to? Can any sentient being with emotions replicate the same result as Teddy? It's a pity that the game never fully explores this concept involving his character. I've interpreted it as Teddy wanting to imitate humans so deeply he morphed into one. Appearing like the others will make it easier to relate to and allow him to fit into human society. He's fully undergone a metamorphosis and gained a greater purpose by contributing to his friends. We then get a brief introduction to Naoto Shirogane, my beloved. Trust me, there will be plenty of Naoto glaze to come in this video. This detective is investigating the recent murders at Inaba, and she's been catching on to the killer's MO and our involvement. We'll return to her in the near future because now it's time for Rise to have her moment. There's a reason why her and Teddy's arcs coincide with each other, and it's because they both undergo the most drastic transformation. It's virtually night and day comparing Rise's first appearance to any other point after her dungeon. When you first meet her at the tofu shop, she's super gloomy and soft-spoken since her job is obviously taking a toll on her. But after she's been relieved from that intense weight she's been carrying, she's all bubbly and animated.
Thank you so much. I love you guys.
From this point on, she resembles her pop idol image a lot more. It goes to show that there were still elements of her TV personality that was genuine all along, which reinforces the concept that Rosette isn't separate from her natural identity. They've always been parts of a whole person. She now has the confidence to believe that this personality is her own. We've helped her reach that conclusion, so in turn she stands for the people who saved her life. Risa becomes our new navigator now, which is good because Teddy's voice was a bit grating. It got back up! Hurry up and defeat it! I wasn't trying to hear that bullshit in my ear. Rise just creams her panties every time you get a week instead.
Oh, Senpai, that was perfect.
It's a lot more pleasant to listen to. You can tell she really wants used penis, which is fair enough cause who doesn't? The good doesn't just end with the progression of the characters. The police stopped bumming around and finally found a suspect. Unfortunately, the total clown show continues since the suspect is nowhere to be found. The police are here as background decorations at this point, though there's actually a very good reason why they can't find the killer. That fucker's cruising in the Midnight Channel and he's taunting everyone to come catch him too. Words cannot communicate my raging hate boner for this smug little shit. I can't wait to head inside the TV to exterminate him. Oh my days. Even this guy's little retro world is so corny. I fucking hate this dungeon. It's the worst one. This my life is like a video game ass dungeon. This I pause my game to be here ass dungeon. This penny arcade ass dungeon. It's not even just the cheesy appearance that bothers me. The third floor reintroduces that goofy ass teleporting bullshit again. At least with this one, there's somewhat more of a puzzle here. You gotta choose the right direction to advance forward. But if one annoying gimmick wasn't enough, then how about an even shittier one on floor 7? Your camera will randomly flip in another direction every time you reach an intersection. The flipping can be a nuisance if you're next to an enemy. This is what I mean by the devs being trolls. There's a key hidden on this floor that you need to get to the boss with. It's so easy to miss, and if you get to the boss floor without it, you're fucked. So if you had zero clue that that thing was even there in the first place, you'll get unfairly punished by having to go all the way back. The enemies in here are a massive pain in the ass to deal with, so going through the dungeon again was a nightmare. I was so pissed off having to do this. It was like midnight and I was already tired. I ended up dying to random enemies giving me belt to ass multiple times. But it only gets worse now that I have to face this 8-bit cuck on the top floor. Fun fact, Alice made a special collaboration with Benjamin Netanyahu when conceptualizing this boss. This boss is actual hell to fight against. On my first ever playthrough years ago, I had suffered numerous deaths to this guy. This boss is the sole reason why I have a vendetta against Kanji. I love the guy to death, but back then, he sold the hell out of me. The boss was one hit away from dying, and you know what Kanji did? He fucking missed! And immediately after, you got one-tapped. I genuinely lost my mind over this. I literally powered off my laptop and didn't play the game for weeks. I was that livid. So as petty revenge for ruining my win years ago, I'm gonna cuck Kanji by dating Naoto. The reason why this boss is so hard is because of the 8-bit outer shell protecting the actual shadow. So you have to go through a whole nother health bar just to actually damage him. On top of that, he can regrow his shell over time. If he fully completes it, that's another health bar to take on. If this happens several times, you're screwed because the shell has so much endurance. You'll eventually get taken out if you waste too many turns. Normally on any other run, I'd be stressing out fighting the guy. Fortunately, I have a secret weapon to turn things in my favor. My trusty glorious king, Black Frost. My hardcore fans already know how much I love Jack Frost. I made an entire video about it, but this isn't just me glazing another Frost variant. This guy was a godsend. His affinities are damn near immaculate because in Persona 4 specifically, he doesn't have a weakness. To make this even better, he's a full Arcana in this game, which is an automatic social link. So you'll basically get free extra levels without even trying. And the devs sucked him off even further by giving him Mind Charge and Fire Amp, meaning that he can brutalize this subhuman geek like it's nothing. TLDR, Black Frost is the best thing since losing my virginity. Because of my frosty goat, I beat that ugly ass retro dweeb on my first try. It was so cathartic to demolish this cringy loser so I can speed through this part. If you expect me to go in depth with this guy, I'm not. The boss does all the explaining for me. He hid behind all this gamer crap to escape the reality that he was a crybaby bitch who wanted attention. That's all. I refuse to give a sincere analysis to this bum. He doesn't deserve it. The team is finally able to capture this dork and I hope they give him the death penalty. The game is self-aware enough to recognize that they subjected you to capital punishment, so they apologize with a pleasant summer vacation with the cast. Over the break, the group plans social events such as the festival and the beach. The get-togethers feel grounded and earned after the trials these characters went through. There's no better feeling than getting to unwind with these group of knuckleheads. The investigation team gets quite a lot of praise and there's a simple reason why. These guys are comedy gold. I don't think there's any other Persona game that can make me laugh as hard as this one can. The beach trip in particular featured moments that speak for themselves.
Dude, what is this?
Yo, you can see his fucking bulge. Kanji losing his speedo and having to use Teddy to cover up will always be at the top for the funniest moments in the entire franchise. They're strategically followed up by his humble reenactment of the birth of Venus. It's the sort of absurdity that only lands because you already know the characters so well. The humor in game is based around the characters starting off in a normal scenario and then escalating into an absurd chaotic situation. This structure is expertly executed with a keen sense of comedic timing. A perfect example of this is the King's Game cutscene. This is my all-time favorite sequence in the game because it contains so many entertaining and personality-rich moments. Drunk Rise rambles on about work and pressures everyone to get freaky. Yukiko acts like a drunken ditz, contrasting with her prim and proper nature. Kanji gets his manhood violated by a Teddy in heat, all while Naoto sits silently throughout all this debauchery. This is made all the more hilarious once you find out that these guys are all faking it and they're just drunk off the atmosphere. These erratic moments will have you look back at them as fond memories, developing a warmth nostalgia. They become sentimental scenes that'll last forever in the hearts of players. But behind all the sunny days and laughter, there's this lingering feeling that things aren't over just yet. Let's be honest here. That lame cornball obviously wasn't the killer. He was far too small-minded and impulsive to be pulling off elaborate kidnappings. Nowhere near as deliberate as the killer was built up to be. The only one attentive enough to realize this is Naoto. She's able to deduce every inconsistency and contradiction while no one else can. A highly impressive feat considering she's not equipped with the same powers as the others. It shows precisely why she belongs in this field of work. She's so dedicated to figuring out the truth that she baits the killer into targeting her. All the suspicion builds up to her own disappearance. This along with her appearance on the Midnight Channel confirming her theory. The only way to know if this is truly connected to the past incidents is to return to the TV once more. You'll think Naoto's dungeon is far more enjoyable than that last hellscape. Not even just because Pixel Satan is in here, the area has a way cooler sci-fi aesthetic with all the futuristic high-tech stuff. The soundtrack that plays in this place is immaculate. It's up there with The Almighty in Heaven as one of my favorite tracks from the game. Additionally, it's one of the easiest parts in the game in my opinion. Now if you were wise and leveled up Rise's social link, you'd breeze on by. She just simplifies combat by telling you exactly what the enemy weakness is if a party member can target it. And by now, your party members should be at the point where they have skills that are actually useful for once. You also have access to personas that are more viable and worthy of staying in your party. All of these factors will let you cruise onto the boss floor.
It's about time you arrived.
Unlike past victims, Naoto is pretty chill about everything going on. It's not until the twist that she wasn't a guy that she begins to crack. The game frames this as some huge breakthrough, but I kinda already knew. Whoa, Naoto is a girl? What gave it away? Was it her feminine facial features, or her feminine voice, or her feminine size and stature? I never saw this coming, but this reveal is an extremely crucial piece to understanding her character. Her disguise had a deeper sympathetic motive that went beyond just tropes. Throughout her life, the role models that she looked up to had repeatedly been men. She had grown up idolizing the archetype of the hard-boiled detective, the stone-cold male hero that always brought justice no matter the circumstance. She dedicated her entire life towards becoming that image, spending years studying up on law and criminal investigation to become the dream detective she aspired to be, only for her to be judged for the characteristics outside of her control by the same people she set out to emulate. Her efforts were squandered from the moment she was born as a woman. The line of work she chose was dominated by men, meaning she was bound to be underestimated as a teenage girl. The disparities in physique and experience made it a grand obstacle to never be deemed qualified. In a profession defined by imminent danger and physical applicability, she was never going to be formally acknowledged as capable for the job. Her coworkers would never see her as anything other than a little girl sticking her nose in grown men's business. The only way she thought she could break through these barriers was to disguise herself as a male, but even then she was held to a way higher standard to any of her contemporaries. If she were ever out of line or made a mistake, they'd make any excuse to get rid of her. This compelled her to be an overachiever, exceeding expectations in order to earn what she deserved. She did everything she could to accelerate her maturation in order to be recognized as an adult. It explains why she uses eloquent language and casual conversation. It's the reason why she insists on not engaging with the childish shenanigans with the others. And that's how she developed an obsession with solving the case. If she betrays herself as a mature, serious man, then maybe people would respect her. But you can only keep a facade on this level up for so long until the truth comes out. The detective who spent years mastering the art of uncovering the truth had been running from her own, and her shadow has no intention of letting her forget it. This boss is miles simpler than that cube parasitic vermin. Yes, I'm still mad about him. This boss was a cakewalk because I cheesed my way through it like the cheap steak I am. At a certain point in my fight, the boss's AI just stopped functioning properly. The boss's AI was fixated on targeting Kanji's weakness with spamming wind abilities. I think it's because Yukiko and Chie had affinities and nullified their respective elements since they were maxed out. And it didn't help that Black Frost could absorb both ice and fire attacks. Even though the boss could remove these resistances, the affinities would only turn neutral. Bosses typically prioritize hitting weaknesses, which is why Shadow Naoto only did Magarudyne for the last few turns. The simple solution was to just make Kanji block the entire time like a pussy. The repetition made the fight predictable, so I won without any issues. And with that, the Scooby-Doo mystery gang has collected all its members. Each of these guys was saved by the other at their lowest points. They each have a reason to feel indebted and swear loyalty to each other, and you'll get to know them all on a deeper level through their individual social links. There's also a valuable gameplay incentive for ranking up party members' social links that goes beyond character development. They directly affect what they're capable of in battle, and if you increase their rank, they'll be able to perform follow-up attacks, cure ailments, and even sacrifice themselves to protect you. Rise is one of the most crucial ones to do since she's in every battle. She is pretty much the best navigator in the entire series. If you get her to rank 9, she'll shield the party from the attack that would have killed you. And at rank 10, she'll just straight up revive you. God damn, Rise, chill out. You're gonna make Fuka look lame in comparison. But I have to rant about Rise's social link real quick. I had completely forgotten that if you hug Rise at rank 8, it'll initiate her romance. First of all, why did she interpret that as a romantic gesture? Second of all, does this game expect me to be an asshole and not comfort her? At this point of her social link, she's at her most vulnerable and she's breaking down into tears. Why would I ignore her and treat her as some nuisance? There's zero in between either. My only options are to hug her or tell her to eat ass. I was dating Naoto in this playthrough too. When Valentine's Day rolls around, the game tries to shame me for cheating like it's my fault. You put me in this situation, game. I bet the devs were chuckling their balls off while programming this. Don't get me wrong, Rise is far from a bad pick. She's arguably top 3 Persona girls. I just don't like how I was tricked into making her my side bitch. To make up for this, I vowed to date Rise when Revival comes out. The game gives you plenty of time to hang out with your friends, creating cherished moments and changing their lives. But we're reminded of the threat that's residing in this town when Ryu gets a threatening letter in the mail. Through the letter, Dojima figures out that we have an involvement with the case. He's so infuriated by this, he immediately takes you in for questioning, but because of his tunnel vision, he abandons Nanako once again by leaving her at home unattended. That one lapse in judgment leads to Nanako getting kidnapped right when he thought he was pursuing justice. On top of that, the team discovers that it was Namatame who kidnapped her, the secretary who cheated on his wife. This is one of the most tense parts of the entire game. Nanako's role as the final captive works so well because she was an innocent little girl to whom the player grew attached through from the start of the game. And for her to be a victim of something so traumatic at such a young age, you feel compelled to save her. The kidnapper has also been finally unveiled, and the entire cast is working feverishly to bring him to justice. There's even a police scene you get to see in a live action drama, but Dojima forgot that he wasn't a main character, so he gets into an accident. With him bedridden and utterly defeated, we make an unbreakable promise to bring Nanako back home. Don't worry, Nanako. I and my harem of cosplayers will come save you. Yeah, I replaced Kanji with Naoto for the rest of the game. You'll probably think it's because I'm a simp or because of my grudge against Kanji, and you would be partially correct, but I actually do believe she's more convenient to bring onto the team. Kanji's definitely better for bosses, but I feel Naoto is more suited for dungeon crawling. She can do almighty damage and has insta-kills, so she can squad wipe enemies like it's nothing. I'd rather have her deal with the grunts while Black Frost takes care of the bosses. That way I can easily reach the top floor so I can strangle Namatame with my bare hands. Just look at how he's putting poor Nanako in a headlock. I'm gonna pop a blood vessel soon if I don't make him bite the curd within the next minute. In contrast to all the previous encounters, Namatame becomes his own shadow. This makes an interesting implication about what happens when a character holds faith in a false absolute. It's not that Namatame can't accept the truth, he just sincerely believes that he's saving people through the TV. I have this theory that if one is so far into their delusions, they're incapable of distinguishing reality from perception. At this stage, the person becomes no different than the distorted feelings of the shadow. His subconscious distortions become his conscious reality, resulting in a man who's fully merged as one with his shadow. His boss features the most unique and engaging gimmicks within the game. His skill, Quad Converge, will increase the damage of a random element and make every other one weaker. I had completely forgotten that he could do this, so I was fighting him pretty aimlessly. So for the first time this playthrough, I died to a boss. I was so cocky because I hadn't died to a single boss yet until now. Not even the bane of my existence 2 dungeons ago could put a stop to me. I was really frustrated because it hurt my ego quite a bit, but it helped me realize that the key to this fight was figuring out this gimmick. In the beginning of the second run, I still didn't really get it. Eventually I had an epiphany and learned that you have to use his own ability against him. When his skill enhanced fire attacks, I was able to deal insane amounts of damage with Black Frost. You need the RNG gods in your favor and hope that the boss enhances your element. Apparently the gods were smiling down on me because he kept on enhancing fire. Namatame could also mind control your party members. But once again I was lucky, since Chie and Yukiko's skills would have healed me, so they could only use weak attacks. If that wasn't the case, I probably would have died again, but I was able to get my revenge successfully. We were able to honor our sacred promise to Dojima, but Nanako ends up having to be hospitalized. You can feel the anguish and regret the gang feel for not having her home sooner. If things had gone differently, then maybe they could have done something to prevent the situation entirely. But they were all at the wrong place at the wrong time. Sitting and moping around about something that's already happened won't fix anything. All the team can do now is have faith that she'll pull through. So to distract myself from the dread, I decided to level up the most crucial social link in the entire game. No, not Marie. I obviously meant Naoto. I wasn't joking earlier when I said I was planning on cucking Kanji. I even prepped myself for a social link in advance by maxing my social stats out. But outside of my grudge, I always saw her as best girl for a reason. I have a little confession to make. When I was younger, I sort of had a phase where I was into reverse traps. I grew out of it fairly quickly and that aspect of my personality was dormant. It wasn't until Naoto that some of those feelings resurfaced. There's something sort of flattering and adorable about her going so far to imitate cool dudes she looked up to. I try my best to emulate guys I think are charismatic all the time. It's a shared experience you can resonate with. Her social link stands out because you go on a wild goose chase trying to solve a mystery together. She recollects all these play detective toys she used to own, highlighting her more vulnerable and cutesy side she doesn't show often. Overall, it's one of my favorite romance routes in the entire franchise, and I had a blast playing my Naoto dating sim. However, my life simulator game is unfortunately being interrupted by major plot events. Inaba is being laced with a thick fog that's seeping in from the TV world. The upbeat music from before is replaced by this eerie and uncanny instrumental. As soon as you walk around town, you begin to feel like you're in a Silent Hill game. The vibe shift is a bleak omen of what's to come. The investigation team gets called to the hospital since Nanako's condition is in a terrible state. Every detail of the sequence is the most heart-wrenching thing you could ever witness. Nanako's weak, quivering voice as she tries to speak, fearing what's going to happen to her. You trying to comfort her by holding her hand. Her final words were her calling out for her brother and father. Even at a time like this, her father isn't there for her. And as the final beep echoes across the room, she dies without getting to see her dad one last time. It's the most heavy-hitting moment in the game for me, considering Nanako is one of my favorite characters. Her most endearing aspect was her transition from a shy relative to an adorable emoto as she warms up to you. It felt fulfilling being there for her on those late nights while her dad was away. Some of my favorite moments in the game were when she would hang out with the investigation team or appear in their social links. We were giving her people she could bond with, so she didn't have to sit at home all alone any longer. But knowing that we couldn't do anything for her this time, despite our best efforts, just made my heart ache. Forget about me though. Could you imagine how Dojima must have felt? He's infuriated enough to try and kill Namatame, but he's stopped by security. The team naturally empathizes with how he's feeling, so they go to confront Namatame themselves. The player is given the option of either murdering Namatame or allowing him to live. The wrong path would lead to severe consequences. But it's just one problem. There's this really bullshit means of unlocking the path towards the true ending. You have to answer a series of specific dialogue choices, and if you get one wrong, it's over. Some of the right options are so vague you probably wouldn't pick them on a blind run. There's a very high chance that you'll just pull up a guide so you don't stress over it. And it's especially annoying since outside of social links, dialogue choice rarely ever matters in this game. Now all of a sudden you have to play this goofy guessing game out of nowhere. I will say, I do like how the game takes advantage of the vitriol the player has towards Namatame, but a simple singular choice would function just the same and achieve the same result. Don't kill Namatame or hang him by his entrails. That's all they really needed. I think they added so many options to make the player doubt their choice. But they probably would have executed it better if the other characters were trying to convince you of what he should choose. Then, after hearing everyone's arguments, he would make the final decision. The message of the confrontation is clear. You shouldn't let intense emotions and bias blind you from pursuing the truth. That's what each character arc was trying to convey you since the game started. If you get everything right, the team will ultimately decide that they'll let Namatame live so they'll hear him out. After being able to overcome your impulses, the game rewards you for applying what you learned throughout the game. Nanako has a miraculous recovery and her heart started beating again. Teddy, in a last-ditch effort, used his powers to resuscitate her back to life, though he's disappeared from this plane of existence. While he's away, the team interrogates Namatame once more. They're able to uncloud their judgment and investigate his involvement with a level head. When they hear his side of the story, they learn that he was earnestly trying to save people. In the cases where a victim had actually been murdered, he had no involvement. He had no idea what was going on in the TV world, so he believed that throwing people in there saved them from being killed. He saw that every time he threw someone in, they'd live, which deluded him into thinking that the TV was rescuing others. His confession recontextualizes his actions, displaying how he represents the savior complex. When the affair scandal hit the news, he had lost everything he had accumulated over the years. With his career in shambles and his life on a downward spiral, he had to reclaim his dignity. He was desperate to regain his image after the worst mistake in his life. Maybe if he protected these people, he could be forgiven in the eyes of the town and cease to be shunned by the media. He went as far as forcibly kidnapping innocent people because he wanted to feel like he was a savior of the community. He never considered how his victims must have felt or what happened to them when he shoved them inside the TV, all because he was more interested in his redemption. On one hand, I feel bad for him since he was misled into committing heinous crimes without knowing. On the other hand, most of this shit wouldn't wouldn't have happened if he hadn't gotten his dick wet with some reporter. And he almost got Nanako killed too, so fuck him. But whether or not he should be forgiven is irrelevant. The person who murdered the first 2 victims is still on the loose. Sadly, the townspeople are more interested in convenient narratives, while we're the only ones searching for the true culprit. After an exhausting day of questioning, nobody is able to find any leads. Yu decides to go over all the facts and narrow down the culprit through the following criteria. The culprit wasn't seen as anyone untrustworthy and was able to snoop around town with ease. The perpetrator was able to come into contact with the announcer and Saki without being witnessed. The suspect drew no suspicion from numerous police officers on duty. So put your trusty detective cap in monocle. We're gonna put our ace defective skills to the test and break this down. For the townspeople to not suspect anyone suspicious, the killer would have to be a high trust authority figure. Them engaging with the victims without issue would also support that reasoning. The third requirement pretty much narrows it down. The last person the police would suspect would be someone who's gained their trust. Someone from inside their own force would be seen as an ally of justice and clear the suspicion. I honestly really like how the game doesn't handhold you here. No character interrupts your thought process to nudge you towards the right direction. You have to figure it out on your own. It's a conclusion you can reach as long as you can interpret the information. And if you clicked on this video, you already reached the truth behind this incident. It's Adachi. The only person other than him to fit this criteria is Dojima, but the sole fact that his only daughter got involved makes him unlikely to be the mastermind. That would only leave Adachi as the prime suspect. The rest of the team reinforces this rationale with additional evidence, such as Adachi's behavior and his advantages as a detective. With everything they've gathered, they find Adachi at the hospital to interrogate him. Every time they ask him a question, he deflects and tries to drive them away, but as the pressure keeps building up and the nerves start nipping away at him, Adachi just folds like an omelet.
We already know Namatami's the one who put him all in.
Naoto perfectly presses him on a prior slip-up like the goat she is. And as soon as he's exposed in front of everyone, he makes his escape into the nearest TV. All that's left now is to catch him in the other world tomorrow. When Yu sleeps that very same night, he reunites with Teddy in his dream. Teddy has finally stopped denying the reality that was right in front of him. He was just a shadow this entire time. He memory hold this to cope with the fact that humans and shadows were incompatible. He became this marketable plushie to appeal to what humans like. This creates even more mysteries about his origins and capabilities. He was a shadow that formed another shadow from inside of him. Shadows have always been capable of speaking and having emotions like Teddy, but there aren't really any that are able to have their own shadow, control said shadow, or have their own persona. If he's merely fragments of the ego like Igor and Tails, then he probably shouldn't be able to do this. There's a possibility that Teddy's a lot more unique and special than he realizes. Yu helps him understand it by explaining how he saved Nanako. His identity may not be what he wanted, but his presence made a difference to the people he cared about. That provides Teddy with enough comfort to return to the human world. With his newfound hope, he uses his sensing powers to track down Adachi. He's definitively been caught now, so there's no need for him to put up a mask anymore. That clumsy police officer gimmick has been put to rest. He reveals his true colors as a demented monster who attacked his victims for the thrill of it. He confirms his crimes by recounting how much he indulged in killing those women that rejected his assault. By the way he retells the tragedies, you can tell it was one of the best moments of his entire life. He was waiting for the day he could act out his sick desires. He just needed an excuse. He had Namatame strung around his finger to continue his crimes without having to get involved, finding entertainment in making both parties play a never-ending game of cat and mouse, all with a shit-eating grin. I have to admit, manipulating someone else to do the dirty work so they'll take the blame is some crafty stuff. It shows that there was some ingenuity behind the lazy clutch we were shown. It's no surprise that it was him. The guy had always seemed kinda off to me. The fact that he would always seemingly pop up out of nowhere without any greater narrative purpose was strange. So naturally his role was reserved for being the twist villain. From the beginning he would slip out little hints to puppeteer the investigation team on what to do next. He was the jester, a pretend fool who hid the fact that he knew more than he let on. It was an act to mask his deep contempt for the world and the people around him. His cautionary tale explores how social discontent can lead to extreme malice. He studied his whole life, thinking that his hard work would lead to him being a prestigious officer that was showered with accolades. He falsely believed that he should have been rewarded for his efforts, but he didn't get what he thought he was entitled to, turning him bitter and resentful. When he made his big mistake that got him exiled to Inaba, he lost access to the dream he once held. He became disillusioned with society as a whole, and turned to nihilism to cope with his failures. He pushed all the blame on his lack of innate talent instead of self-reflection. Despite him claiming to accept that certain individuals are inherently endowed with advantages, he still grew a grudge. It made him feel disenfranchised and inferior, developing a complex against everyone else. But that all changed when he gained the power of Persona. He finally had some form of power over people that he could assert to make people do his bidding. And whenever someone rejected his abuse, he'd punish them with a death sentence. He found excitement in committing these crimes because he finally had an influence over the society he was previously powerless in. His mundane life as a lackey was finally over, and he could have some fun. I personally love the fact that he had no rational justification beyond his warped desires. It reflects how many actual serial killers in real life only target people for their sadistic pleasures. There's no real motive for serial murder beyond the need to impose dominance over someone helpless. It's no different than the shadows that wildly attack people based on instinct, which is why the investigation team must put an end to his sick games. But don't let all this huge build-up fool you. Adachi is a massive pushover in his actual boss fight. It's likely because he has no exclusive abilities. Every other boss carried some powerful skill that they can only use. He was left with a fairly generic skill set, compounded by the fact that you'll likely have an incredibly strong personas at this point. And even if you don't, your party members should be picking up the slack. It's pretty disappointing because this guy's supposed to be the culprit we've been chasing all this time, but he poses no grand challenge. I was so unfazed by this fight that I went to go eat a meal halfway. There's this feeling of dissatisfaction after you beat him, but there's a narrative purpose as to why this boss is so lackluster. Adachi has his big moment usurped. He gets possessed by the god Amino Sagiri. They're a deity that states human civilization as a whole refuses to seek the truth, blinded by their wishes and desires. So in response to what mankind wanted, he created a TV world in the Midnight Channel. The fog has only expanded into the real world because people wish to be blinded by it. I thought the commentary was very insightful and appropriate for thematic purposes, but the whole god aspect seems out of place. Persona 4's story was a lot more grounded in stakes with the small town mystery. The game narrative was driven by that town's residents and their need to restore stability within the community. The story's appeal was that threat blended in with the community and could have been any regular person you'd meet, and in a game centered around human complexities and experiences, it would have been more fitting to have a human be the big bad. An amalgamation of mankind's most sinister impulses, like Adachi, aligned perfectly with the game's core message, so having this godly being show up out of nowhere with insufficient foreshadowing felt unwarranted. It's a huge leap in story development, overshadowing the murder plot point to the point where it becomes trivial in comparison, though I still enjoy what it represents. Despite all odds, the investigation team defies the will of humanity and the god driving their impulses. Even at the sight of an ominous all-seeing eye in front of them, they'll pursue the truth no matter what. They won't waver to a higher power beyond their grasp because they're the only ones that can save their world. This encounter provided the challenge I originally expected from Adachi. He specializes in attacks that inflict heavy almighty damage, so there'll be no resistances to defend you. He also has a bewildering fog skill, where he makes all your attacks futile. In this state, he'll use his untouchability to give himself numerous buffs. It's best to focus on defense until his buffs are removed. Well, that would be what an actual strategist would do, but I'm a fucking moron. I got two-shotted in the final hurdle because I was getting too comfortable. I was this close to beating this sentient jaundice eye disease, but I got screwed over. I felt humiliated already, but I got completely distraught seeing that I had to fight Adachi all over again. It felt like a waste of time duking it out with this jobber when I know a greater threat is coming up. At least when I got back to Amino Sagiri, I was more familiar with what he would do. What a real advantage I had discovered is that you can cheese the boss to make it a bit easier. In the opponent's final stage, it's best to use stat-related skills like Racunda, Debilitate, or Heat Riser. This is because the boss is programmed to prioritize getting rid of your debuffs and buffs, so it wastes a turn nullifying these stats, resulting in you taking way less damage. The boss leaves himself vulnerable for an ass whooping, allowing the investigation team to claim their well-deserved victory. With his defeat, Amino Sagiri realizes he underestimated human potential and decides to live the fog that plagues the town. Adachi is apprehended and he admits his guilt to the police, and the skies of Inaba are free from the shadow-laden haze and shine a bright blue once more. Everyone is able to return to their peaceful, quiet, small-town lives. On Christmas Day, the investigation team celebrates Nanako coming back from the hospital with a huge cake. They finally got to have the fun childhood they were almost robbed of. As the new year begins, the festive spirit is in the air with snow covering the town. I personally love this phase the most because the holiday season has always been my favorite time of the year. Everyone's usually in a jolly mood and you get an excuse to spend time with loved ones. This festive ambiance is woven into the game's expanded social link content. The golden edition of this game adds one more stage to each party member's social link, giving a third new form to everyone's persona. It expresses how people are ever changing and have unlimited potential for growth. I like to believe that everyone continues to have their personas evolve even after the game ends. They likely had even more experiences that helped them mature and develop as people off screen as well. With the Midnight Channel confirmed gone, the gang gets to live as a group of regular teenage friends. They head out on one last big trip before Yu returns returns to the big city. This is a whole new segment added in this version of the game. There are new cutscenes where the squad has an unforgettable vacation skiing in the mountains. However, this isn't simply more slice of life content. There's an entire subplot with a new dungeon. Remember how I said Marie was going to be important? Well, now she finally starts being plot relevant this late into the game. Before the skiing trip occurred, Marie had left the Velvet Room and had gone missing. Margaret spends a few days trying to track her down, and when she pinpoints her location, it's within the Hollowed Forest. This area relies heavily on gimmicks. All your items and equipment are removed. After every battle here, you'll lose a shitload of SP. The place has barriers in store that force you into an encounter, so you can't just avoid every single shadow like a pussy. You'll end up having to fight with barely any SP in store. I feel like my biggest issue with her dungeon is that it limits my options. I need to fight using strength skills so I don't waste any XP, but the variety is what's supposed to keep combat interesting. The freedom to fight with various different strategies is what makes RPGs so fun. It's less of a compelling challenge and more of a tedious chore. I would have been more tolerant of it if I could level up, but it barely gives any XP because it would make your team too over-leveled. So I'm stuck fighting fodder in exchange for fuck all. The most redeeming part of this dungeon is how it expands on Marie's character. She's revealed to be Kusumi no Okami, a part of the Sagiri that created the fog. She was created to spy on Inaba to inform the gods of the people's collective will. When the fog vanished, it actually went to reside inside of her. She's now destined to disappear along with the fog and be erased from existence. She had unknowingly subjected her friends to so much anguish, and possibly could have devastated an entire town. The guilt eats away at her, and she would rather choose to die to prevent that from happening again. And you can completely understand why she feels that way. It's tragic to spend your days searching for your past, only to discover that your existence put people in danger. It mirrors Teddy's character arc in some ways. They're both about the pain and misery that could be derived from self-discovery, but you don't have to bear that burden all on your own. You can always rely on other people to support you through that hardship. It's admirable to see everyone go to such lengths just to save a friend of theirs. Speaking conceptually, it's quite the sympathetic tale, but in its implementation, I always found it hard to stay invested. Marie herself is fine, but her storyline could have been executed a lot cleaner. As I said earlier, she's detached from the actual narrative. She meets all of Yu's friends in her social links, but never in the main story. I can't say she had that many meaningful interactions to make her feel like an organic part of the team. She has very little to do with the investigation outside the stuff with the fog. The game presents her as this close, irreplaceable friend to the investigation team, but they only hung out a couple of times. People like to joke online that she feels like someone's deviant or OC who snuck into the game. Compare her to someone like Maruki, who is way better integrated. He was seamlessly included so that you wouldn't suspect he wasn't in the original Persona 5 at all. There's also Sumire, who got the privilege of becoming an actual party member. If Marie had gotten this treatment, she wouldn't feel so out of place. There wasn't much they could have really done without changing the story entirely, so I get why she's glued on at the end. I just think that her arc had far more potential than it turned out to be. I will say that I thought her boss fight had an interesting element to it. Her first stage is fairly straightforward. The only thing that could give you trouble was the hot lightning, since it has a 100% chance to inflict dizzy on 2 party members. Her second phase has the strongest resistances out of every boss. I was absolutely baffled by how she repels literally everything. The trick is to use element break items found scattered throughout the dungeon. If you didn't open enough chests to get items to nullify her resistances, you're fucked. Better reload that save file, buddy, and do all that shit all over again. Thankfully, I'm a massive hoarder when it comes to chest collecting. It was pretty unique to have a boss force you to use specific items. Once you get past her defense, the boss is very fragile since she has an abysmal endurance stat. I was dropping 2k SAR bombas with Black Frost like it was nothing. As long as you have strong personas, it's a guarantee that you'll bring Marie back into the real world. It's very endearing that the team selflessly abandoned their normal lives despite them not needing to. Mario explicitly told them that they would have forgotten their time with Marie if she had died in the tomb she made for herself. They could have opted to leave behind a friend they only vaguely knew and not face much consequence for it, but they were still willing to choose to never forget their fun memories with her even if they weren't monumental. They risked their lives against another god to rescue a cherished buddy. To celebrate, they all engage in some bizarre mischief at a sauna. We just fought this otherworldly being an hour ago, now we're back to perving on tits and ass. Everyone has returned to their normal lives, complete with their usual tomfoolery. Days pass by, lifelong impressions are made, and it's finally time for Yu to return to his parents in the city. You've been here for so long that you almost forget that you eventually have to leave it all behind. It is difficult to be forced to leave the circle of friends you made, especially when you know how badly you want to stay. You get to say your final goodbye to all the social links you maxed out. You can see the profound impact you had on everyone's lives, changing them for the better. There's a sorrowful feeling you get, knowing that it's all over and you won't get to spend time with these lovely people like you used to. But I still love how there isn't some cop-out ending where you gets to stay. It ties back to the themes of acceptance that have been prevalent within the game. all good things must come to an end, and you must learn to make peace with this reality. Everything you've been through hasn't gone away, and it will live within your heart even after you go. The game prompts you with one final option to stay a bit longer or say goodbye to the town you grew to adore. If you chose to leave, I'm sorry to inform you, but you severely hold yourself. Apparently, a vast majority of Steam players haven't actually gotten the true ending, and I can see why. I had to pull up a wiki for this shit. There are people watching this video who don't even know this ending exists. There's a hidden route where you can head to Junes one last time. From there, the investigation team will uncover missing pieces about the mystery that haven't been solved. Then you'll have to go to Dojima and Nanako, who will remind you of a strange interaction you had with a gas station attendant when he first arrived. A moment so seemingly irrelevant, most people don't think twice about it. Nanako stated that he felt lightheaded after shaking hands with the gas station employee. Afterwards, you have to go to the Velvet Room to obtain the Orb of Light. Then finally, you confront the real mastermind who pulled the invisible strings from the beginning, Izanami, a goddess who snuck power into Adachi, Namatame, and you to create an experiment to enact humanity's wishes. Unlike the Namatame choice string, I actually believe that the secret ending was executed way better. It serves a better purpose of tying up loose ends, and it is justified why things were left ambiguous. It makes sense that you would have to go to Junes because that was where it all began. There are no indication that this path exists because it's up to the player to carve out the path on their own. You have to make the active decision to search for the answers yourself. You get rewarded for taking time to explore each area of the game. In return for being attentive, you gain access to the final dungeon for real this time. The player, along with the investigation team, is able to see through the fog that is ever present in society. The vast majority of people are wired to only see what they want to believe in. It's solely these 8 that are standing here now that are capable of seeing only what's real. It's because they learn to live honestly with themselves that they're able to face Izanami. We're ending things off with a battle against a god. Again. It's apparently standard for JRPGs to end with some grand eldritch entity or some shit. After the last 3 god reveals, it sorta loses its magic. But this boss doesn't disappoint with the extreme challenge it poses. I got past the first half easily since I was using Debilitate. This is my favorite all-time Persona skill because it's the holy trinity of debuffs, making it super versatile. It can do this while not being too overpowered, keeping the gameplay balanced. Izanami must have been really pissed off since she just starts cheating by refusing to die. The real battle begins in her second form, where she transforms into this nightmare fuel. If you get unlucky enough, she'll dish out 2 turns of heavy almighty damage to everyone. That is pretty much guaranteed to kill anyone if you're not prepared. There were numerous attacks that I would have flat out died to if I hadn't had a variety of defensive opportunities. I had to rely on Risei's block skill and Naoto's shield of justice. If it weren't for Risei and Naoto's protection, I would have been fucking crucified back into the Velvet Room. I find it poetic since those 2 were the girls I romanced. The RNG gods favored me a bit because there were some close calls. Ironically enough, I beat it on my first try with no party members dying despite the difficulty. But Izanami just continues to not fight by the rules. There's this usual routine of being distracted by a scripted loss that RPG devs just love to do. It's their bread and butter. They just can't get enough of this shit. So, how do we win? With the power of friendship, baby. Yu loves his friends so hard that they prevent him from dying. All your maxed out social links call out to you and give him the strength that he needs. Sure, it's a bit cheesy, but it's always been a core aspect of the game. The sacred bonds you built throughout the game have always assisted you in battle. He saved these people's lives through what he's done for them, so it's only natural for them to reciprocate his generosity. It's meant to make you parallel Izanami by having him grant the pleas of the people. He carries the passionate will of a few to transform his persona into Izanami no Okami, using their truths to dispel the great lie right in front of them.
Took the glasses off. Oh my goodness!
With the fog forever gone from Inaba, Yu no longer has a reason to stay. Yu's closest loved ones give him a heartfelt farewell before his departure. Even though this is goodbye, they've matured enough to prep themselves for this. No matter how far apart they will be, they will always be connected as one. That final cutscene of the gang running by the train will never fail to put me in the feels. I always get somewhat sentimental watching the end credits roll. It's bittersweet to put down a game you spent so much time with. It's one of the longest games I have no qualms with playing over and over again. My experience playing this game again was even better than last time. It's a damn fun game and you should definitely try it out for yourself if you haven't. You could wait for the remake, but I'm sure you'll still have a blast with Golden. I can only pray that they're able to emulate the same essence with Persona 4 Revival. I personally choose to keep my expectations low so that if they make any bullshit changes, I won't be as upset. To evoke the same sensation that this game had on me would be hard to replicate. I'm not gonna get too overly emotional and say that it changed my life or whatever, but it challenges you to look at your own life through the lens of self-improvement and integrity. I will always love this game's philosophy because it illuminates the road to self-actualization. As long as you hold on to the truth, you'll eventually find yourself. It's a strong goal that I'll try my best to actively strive for. It will be difficult finding another game that'll resonate with me like this again. Going into this game blind was like the pioneers venturing out into Western territory. It truly was a golden experience.